Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E.
Hi everyone and welcome to the Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. So, as many people are aware that there is a rise of using drone technology for non-military purposes. Many individual entrepreneurs, small businesses, and large companies are putting robotic aircraft known as drones to good use. George Madjitey, my guest today, is one of them. George is the CEO of GM Industrial Solutions. GM is a Ghanaian-owned and operated agri-tech service provider based in Accra. In this episode, we'll talk about his journey from the science into business and the use of drones for agriculture technology. Hi, George, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Anne. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. So we're just going to get right into it. So the first thing that we want to know is, for the listeners, can you just tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. Like you said, my name is George Madjitey. I'm the CEO of GM Industrial Solutions Limited in Accra, Ghana. And I'm 29 years of age, originally from Houston, Texas in the United States, but I'm actually Ghanaian by blood. I decided about 3 years ago to relocate to Ghana and co-found GM Industrial Solutions with my business partner, Akon Anda, who also went to undergraduate with me. And so it's been a journey the last 3 years, and it's been really interesting to see where we've gotten to to date. So I'm happy to share more about that with you.
Oh, cool. Okay, so what actually made you get into the science? Before we delve into how you got into GM, we just want to know, the roots of the science, the journey.
Sure. So I guess my original plan when I went to uni was to pursue a degree in medicine. So as you know, in most cases, those who are looking to pursue medicine, pursue the sciences, biology, chemistry, so on and so forth. So I, in undergraduate, pursued a Bachelor's of Science in Biology, and then also got a minor in business. I guess what kind of led me in that direction to pursue medicine was my father. He is a physician here in Texas. And
Okay.
I've always admired his work, and I've always admired the sciences in general. I mean, I think the sciences are a topic, or is an area that kind of breaks down the world around you. So that's kind of always piqued my interest, and that's what kind of led me in this direction. That's pretty much what kind of got me interested in the sciences.
Okay, so you said that you took business as a minor, right? So does that mean that in the back of your mind you had this small little calling, sort of, to kind of get into business from an earlier onset, more than you probably knew?
Yes, certainly. I mean, I think back to when I was probably about, let's say, 7, and people would ask, "So what do you want to do when you grow up?" And I would be like, "Oh, well, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a businessman, I want to be an NBA player." Like, those are my 3 things. So in the back of my head, I've always known that I certainly wanted to do something business related. I was always infatuated with business, just as much I was with the sciences. So I didn't know how I would do it. I didn't know when I would do it, but I knew in some form or fashion I would infuse that into whatever I did. And it just ended up being in what I'm doing right now.
Okay, so how did you do it? How did you actually start GM Industries, and what does it actually aim to do in terms of socially and economically? What is the whole essence of the company that you now own?
Sure. So, back in 2017, I was completing my master's. I ended up getting, after getting my undergraduate degree in biology, I then decided to actually forego medicine, but I wanted to pursue medicine still. But like I said, I knew that I still had an interest in business and entrepreneurship. So I thought, okay, how could I bridge the gap between those two fields? And ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
what I thought was, okay, well, um, I started hearing a lot about healthcare administration, which is basically, understanding the business end of the healthcare industry and how it works. And
Right.
considering that my father was a physician and has his own private practice, I thought there was an opportunity for me to get such a master's and do something within healthcare that was more business, focused and related. So in 2017, as I was completing my degree, I also began to become involved in the Ghana Houston Chamber of Commerce. Here in
What is
Houston,
that?
we
Sorry.
so it's yeah, the Ghana Houston Chamber of Commerce is it's an entity or organization, nonprofit organization that looks to essentially promote businesses or investment in Ghana, and
Mm-hmm.
in particular between Houston and Ghana.
Oh,
So
okay.
the whole point was an organization that would take individuals, businesses that were interested in getting into the African market, particularly Ghana, and providing an avenue to make that happen. And so I decided in my last year of undergrad, or not undergrad, pardon me, my last year of my master's degree, to serve
Mm.
as an intern within that organization. And in doing that, I began to become exposed to all the different opportunities that existed business wise within Ghana. And in particular, um, there was a lot of talk within the chamber around oil and gas because at that point in time, the government of Ghana had instated this uh, new law that said, okay, if you bring in a business with relation to oil and gas from outside and bring it into Ghana, there's a
Mm.
mandatory policy whereby there has to be a guiding entity involved in that. Where, they have to have a 10% ownership stake in whatever is being done with relation to the oil and gas sector, or whatever
Okay.
entity you're bringing there. So, ironically enough, I had a friend from undergrad who had started a drone business here in Houston, and he had reached out to me and said, "Hey, we are doing work with drone technology. My understanding of drone technology was rather limited at the time. I saw drones as a
Mm.
thing you use to, record or take photos of events. But
Yeah, of
he
course.
made it very clear that no, drones have the potential to be an asset a management and inspection tool. And what they were doing at the time was project management for oil and gas companies, asset inspection for oil and gas companies, construction companies, so on and so forth. So
Using
as
drone.
I using drones, correct.
Okay.
So as I began to have these discussions within the chamber and have this discussion with this one friend, he said, "Hey, do you think there's any opportunity for us to introduce the technology for that same purpose in Ghana?"
Mm.
And one thing that we have here in Houston annually is the Offshore Technology Conference, which is a conference whereby stakeholders from around the world come to Houston to discuss oil and gas opportunities. And so
Mm.
the chamber, um, being the having the focus that they have as an organization, was very much involved in that particular conference, and they had invited quite a few delegates from Ghana to attend the conference. And so I had the opportunity to have a discussion about drone technology with the different delegates that came, and it was a very general conversation just to understand what their understanding of the technology was, the potential that it has, in a more broad, scope. And ultimately, I mean, it became very clear that they thought that there was an opportunity for us to introduce this technology into Ghana. And I think the reason that was because the oil and gas industry in Ghana at the time was still in its infancy, and the oil and gas
Mm.
market was experiencing a downturn. So anything related to cost savings, improved upon efficiency, was something that was of interest to them. So at that point, I said, okay, I'm approaching the end of my master's degree. There's this business opportunity here. Why don't I take a leap of faith and jump into it and see what I can do with it? And so that's what I did.
Mm.
After completing my master's, I ended up going to Ghana. Ended up having some follow-up meetings with these respective delegates about drone technology and what I thought the technology could do for them. And they were interested. So I said, okay, at this point, let me formalize the business. I had never flown a drone at that point in time, to be honest with you. I didn't really have much experience within the oil and gas market, but the point was that there was a business opportunity, and I thought that what better time than now to jump on that opportunity. After doing that, I came to realize that despite all the interest that there was, the oil and gas market in Ghana is very bureaucratic. So there's a lot of hurdles to kind of overcome when it comes to working within that space. So me and my business partner took a seat back and said, okay, look, are we really prepared to delve into this, or is there another avenue by which we can use this technology to create real value? And in having that conversation, we ended up seeing that there was an even greater opportunity to leverage this technology to improve upon the agricultural sector in Ghana. And so that is how we kind of got into this particular space. Oh, and I'm sorry, I should also add that the one friend who had expressed interest in coming to Ghana to potentially look at these business opportunities kind of backed away. And I think he backed away, number one, because the business that he had formed in Houston was continually growing. And secondly, he has no real ties to Africa. He's American born and raised, Caucasian gentleman. And so I think the idea of now taking himself out of the U.S. to go there just a more daunting thought than he had anticipated. So all that kind of gave me the willpower to say, okay, let's just take this opportunity upon ourselves and see what we can do with it. And so that's ultimately what led to the formation of Gem Industrial Solutions Limited.
Wow, that's a very interesting story. And it really shows how brave you were actually to taking a dive. Not many people would be able to do that. You could have said, okay, I'm comfortable here in America, but instead you decided to take that leap of faith. So once you decided, okay, we're going to go into the oil and gas industry is not working. Like you said, let's look at agriculture. What was the game plan? What did you guys now want to do in the agriculture sector? And how would you use this drone technology in that sector? Because obviously you had a plan, that plan didn't work. So now how did you now rearrange your plan so that it can fit into this new vision that you have for GEM Industries?
Sure. So, I mean, I would say that first, it took a lot of research, right? Understanding where the agricultural sector was in Ghana. And the reality was that, agriculture makes up a huge portion of the GDP in Ghana. Yet, this sector continues to struggle and doesn't really get much attention. So it became a situation where we said, okay, let's figure out what the challenges are within the sector. What are local stakeholders complaining about? What are the challenges that they're facing? What are inadequacies that the government has that they can't necessarily provide those on the ground within this important sector that not only provides toward the GDP, but also employs quite a number of people. And in looking at that, we saw that there was issues of yield optimization. There was issues of agrochemical conservation, which negatively impacts the bottom line of a farmer's income generation. And then there's also just this lack of technological infusion within the space. So in kind of recognizing that, we saw that there was also this technology whereby instead of the traditional drone that just takes photos or videos. There are actually drones that have the capacity of creating data analytics with relation to agriculture. So things like multispectral sensors that allow for crop health diagnostics to be analyzed.
Sorry,
There
before
was
you go any further, sorry, let me just take you right back. When you say, I just wanted for people who don't understand what you're saying, what is crop health diagnostics in simple terms?
very simple terms. What it is essentially we have a multispectral sensor which looks at the reflection of light from a crop. So we use
Okay.
this drone, we fly over, let's say maize, for instance, and what the sensor essentially does is it looks at the reflection of sunlight from the crop, and then takes that data into the sensor, which it then processes to pinpoint if there's any areas of concern on the farm, whether it be pest, disease, or
Okay.
irrigation issue. It basically spotlights that issue so that you as a farmer are able to more readily address that concern, whatever it might be. So the point is that it allows for one to improve upon their efficiency to recognize if there's an issue on your farm.
Oh, okay. That's very useful. That's very useful. So, okay, you figured out that you can do all of this stuff. How do you then take it to your farmers? Be it do you take it firstly to government? Do you take it to your major commercial farmers? I want to say, do you take it to your smallholder farmers? But because I have a little bit of agriculture background, I know that smallholder farmers obviously do not have the capital for the most basic of things. So, but I suppose this is a question for later that I want you to think in the back of your mind. How then do you take it? How then does somebody use this technology, which sounds absolutely brilliant, to the small local to the local farmers who do not have the capital, I suppose, to even afford that.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So to that point, what we first did was we did try and look at taking it or approaching the government about it. But like I said, to some extent, agriculture also is fairly bureaucratic. I mean, when we first started looking at agriculture, we were thinking we would create a service model around cocoa, because cocoa is the number one export for Ghana. And so we were thinking, okay, we could use this technology to improve upon cocoa. That's beneficial not only to the cocoa farmers, but also the government that makes a substantial amount of money off of this commodity crop. But because it is a major commodity, there's a lot of bureaucracy behind that as well. So we said, okay, well, what approach can we take? Ultimately, what happened was we did get some support from the government in that we participated in President Nana Akufo-Addo's inaugural presidential pitch competition in 2018. And that was basically an opportunity for us to pitch our idea to create a service model oriented toward agriculture. And we were one of the finalists, so we did get a bit of capital and general resource support from the government, but it wasn't the exponential amount of support that we expected we would receive, because we thought we were doing something that would really be of value. So we took that support. We then also went and looked at some of the different development organizations, NGOs, that were operating in Ghana or that had an interest in Africa. And quite a few of them had, grants that were tailored toward agriculture. And one organization in particular was CTA, the Technical Center for Agriculture and Rural Cooperation. And they, in fact, had a program or a grant rather, that was geared toward the introduction of drone technology into agriculture specifically. So we applied for that grant. We were fortunate enough to be selected for it, and also got some resource support from them and some financial support from them as well. And so in getting all that support, we said, okay, now we have to look at creating a service model that makes sense, that does appeal to the full spectrum of the stakeholders, whether it be commercial farmers or small farmers. But to your point, smallhold farmers typically do not have the capital or resources to patronize such services as a single individual smallhold farmer.
Yeah.
However, most smallhold farmers in Ghana are typically a part of farm cooperatives. So let's
Yeah.
say within a community, within a
Yes.
region, there's some maybe 200 farmers that are cultivating cassava, for instance. So instead of
Yes. Yes.
each single farmer doing that on their own, they come together as a cooperative, as an organization, and say, "Hey, we need these services or we need this help," and they approach the government or whatever institutions there might be that can provide them the necessary support. So our approach in getting to the smallhold farmer was actually approaching these different farm cooperatives about what we're doing with drone technology, educating them, understanding and engaging them to understand what challenges they're facing, and then through that creating that service model. So we kind of were all over the place for a minute. We were again looking at the government for help, not
Yeah.
really getting support there, and then kind of going back to the drawing board and saying, okay, how do we approach the smallhold farmer directly? Okay, approaching them directly isn't really going to work because of capital, limited capital, but approaching them through the cooperatives that they're a part of
Yeah.
is a viable avenue. So that's how we kind of went through. We kind of went through a bit of a roller coaster to kind of get to where we are now. But that's how we've kind of approached, you know, the concept of being able to serve the whole or a full spectrum of stakeholders within the market.
No, I understand. I understand. It's very thorough. It's a very thorough research that you've done. So you mentioned that you worked with NGOs such as the CTA. Can you tell us some projects that you are involved in currently that you'd like us to highlight?
Yeah. So, well, right now, so the CTA is actually they've done quite a bit of good work. So they actually supported about 38 different enterprises across the continent within agriculture. But
Mm.
unfortunately, this year they're going to be suspending their operations. But nonetheless, because of the support they've given all these different organizations, there's now this platform called the AF Goes Digital platform, whereby a number of us working within tech and within agriculture have come together to provide uh, uh, resource support to each other, whether it be knowledge, whether it be partnerships, whatever it might be. We've come together to help each other out in that respect, and so that group, despite CTA closing, is still relatively active. Beyond that, one thing we always envisioned when we started this business was not only creating a more sustainable environment for local agri stakeholders in Ghana, but also creating
Yeah.
employment opportunity for the youth. And so right now, what we are working to do is we are working to create a network of operators across the country. And how we're looking to approach that is we actually recently brought on board a gentleman by the name of Dr. Thomas Mensah. Now, Dr. Thomas Mensah is a very well renowned inventor, and he's actually one of the key uh, people behind the invention of fiber optics as we know it today.
Wow.
And yeah, and in bringing him on board, he loved what we were doing. He also has an interest in drone technology. And so in hearing that we were doing stuff in agriculture and hearing that we wanted to really create an avenue by which we create employment opportunity, not only in Accra, but actually in other regions of the country, rural regions in particular, he said, look, he is currently working on a project of his own whereby he's looking to uh, uh, reorient the national service model. So right now, if you're a Ghanaian citizen and you go to uni, after you finish uni, the idea is that you're supposed to come back and serve a Ghanaian entity in some capacity for a year. The issue with that model traditionally is that a lot of the times students come out studying, let's say, accounting, for instance, and instead of getting a position within a financial institution that will allow them to build upon what they studied, they're sometimes reoriented into a whole nother field that has nothing to do with what they study. And so he's wanting to change that,
Oh.
and he specifically wanting to change that within technology, because that's his field and his interest. And so what we're doing right now is we are planning a conference in the next couple of months. That's going to involve the vice president of Ghana as well, whereby we're going to look at actually taking those students who have an interest in technology, who have studied elements of aerospace, whether it be engineering or just having general interest in that, and bringing them on board to what we're doing to create an employment opportunity for them that makes sense and that fits their interest. And so we're looking at taking that and using that as an opportunity to meet that goal that we have of creating employment opportunity across the whole country. So that is something that we're doing right now, and we're proactively working on to really again scale up our operations and create real value beyond just serving the local stakeholder. We want to also create value for those in the rural regions who traditionally had to come all the way from the rural region to Accra for a work opportunity. We want to be able to keep them there,
Yeah.
keep them with families, and allow them to gain knowledge and expertise in the technology that can also take them outside of Ghana in the future. Should they desire to. So that's something that we're very heavily invested in right now, and we're working hand in hand with Dr. Mensa, as well as his connections within the government to get that done.
Wow, that's very exciting, and I wish you all the best for that. That sounds like a really great opportunity. So, like, done a lot of things, and it seems like you've got a lot of great ideas that you want to do. You know, given where you are now in your career, and obviously, like I said, where you want to be, did your young self actually think you would be here, first of all? And then secondly, for somebody who's listening and is like in awe in terms of everything that you're doing and the use of drone technology, what advice would you give them about getting into STEM as a whole, but specifically in your area of expertise?
Sure. So no, I didn't anticipate being here. I will say that yes, to some degree, I did see an opportunity to delve into technology that I thought would impact Ghana. And I say that
Mm,
because in the midst of me completing my undergraduate degree in biology, in 2013, I spent some time. This is when I still was intending to pursue the pre-med or the medical route. And at
yeah.
that point in time, I actually spent months in Ghana working at a teaching hospital as an intern. And when I was doing that, around that same time, the U.S. was transitioning itself from the traditional medical records methodology, paper records, to electronic health records. The idea was that that was
Mm,
going to create a better safety as far as protecting patient privacy. It was also going to create better efficiency when it comes to taking records from one healthcare professional to the other, so on and so forth. So, in the time that I worked in Ghana in the teaching hospital, I saw that it was incredibly disorganized. There was a lot just a lot of disorganization within the operational model there. So
mm,
I had actually said, okay, well, since America is looking to introduce, infuse more technology into the healthcare space, perhaps there's an opportunity to also do that in Ghana. And so that is where the idea of working within tech within Ghana kind of started. But did I necessarily
okay.
anticipate getting into agriculture and ag tech? No, I didn't.
Mm,
Um, so to that point, what I'll say to those with an interest in technology or with just a general interest in kind of pursuing business is just keep your options open. I mean, you never really know where life is going to take you. Again, none of my educational background was in tech per se. None of my, it just wasn't really something that wasn't in agriculture either. It just wasn't a space that I really necessarily envisioned I'd be in. But in having discussions and in being open to opportunities and understanding what challenges are present within the world, I mean, I'm so excited to be in the space I'm in because, climate change is a big conversation, food scarcity is a big conversation. And now I feel like our enterprise is playing an active role in creating solutions to address those concerns, right? And so my advice would be keep your options open, find something you're passionate about. In some form or fashion, it may lead to a career. It may lead to a career that you aspire to. It may lead to a career that you don't necessarily envision for yourself. But nonetheless, if you keep your options open, it can lead to something that is fulfilling. And ultimately, I think STEM as a field is interesting in that it creates an opportunity to find solutions to some of the world's biggest problems. And so that's why I'm so passionate about it, and I'm so passionate about what you're doing and what some of these different organizations are doing to highlight those of us in STEM, because I think our stories need to be heard more. And I think those stories are gonna be what encourage others to pursue, such career paths and such passion.
Definitely. I mean, it's listening to your story. This is why I do what I do. I want somebody to listen to your story, like you said, that you didn't intend to be where you are. You had a plan, but being open to opportunities has led to this really amazing avenue, and I wish you nothing but the best for all your future endeavors and all the amazing things that you plan to do, not only for yourself but for the other people in Ghana and hopefully for the world. And I'm sure people who are listening here will be very keen to keep an eye out for you and to just see what you're doing. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope that there are people out there who just get inspired by your story, to just go out there and be open to opportunities. I think that's the best way to even say it. So to everybody out there who's listening, be open to opportunities. And thank you so much to everyone for taking the time to listen to the Root of the Science podcast with your girl and with an E. Until next time, bye.